Looking for a great way to get your team really clear about how to implement a policy or program so it's totally geared for success? This short animation shows how New Zealand Maori tourism is using intervention logic to focus and coordinate their efforts to strengthen the Maori tourism sector. What is intervention logic? It's basically a description of how and why something is expected to achieve its outcomes. It goes a bit like this. If we implement these activities, they should have this effect in the short term, which should lead to these changes in the medium term and these in the long term. Intervention logic goes by a few different names: program theory, program logic, policy logic, theory of change, outcomes framework, log frame, and the visual representation is often called a logic model. Let's walk you through the New Zealand Māori tourism example. Any funding allocated through Vote Māori Affairs is looking to strengthen social, cultural and economic outcomes for Māori. The ultimate vision is iwi, hapu and whānau Māori succeeding as Māori, both at home and globally. The Māori tourism sector was identified as a huge area of potential for achieving these aims. So back in 2010, Cabinet approved a budget to strengthen the sector. New Zealand Māori tourism was charged with developing and implementing this initiative, with the ultimate aim being to lift the Māori contribution to the New Zealand economy and to improve quality of life for Māori. The primary medium-term goal was to help realise a thriving, commercially successful Māori tourism sector. The idea was to draw on the strengths of Māori culture and tradition, as well as the long Māori history of innovation and entrepreneurship. It's about culture leading commerce. But what was the best way to get there? There was so much that could be done in this space. What was the best way to focus the efforts to ensure the goal was realised? To help work this out, New Zealand Māori Tourism worked with Te Puni Kōkiri, Poltama Trust and the then Ministry of Economic Development to develop an intervention logic that would focus and guide the work. This process identified 4 key elements that needed to be strengthened in order for that medium-term goal to be realised. First, Māori culture and tourism needed to have a higher profile. Second, we needed to grow potential markets for Māori tourism experiences. Third, we needed Māori tourism operators with the capabilities they need to establish, maintain and grow their business. And finally, we needed a good range of authentic Māori tourism products and experiences. Raising the profile of Māori tourism is important not just internationally, but also domestically, partly to stimulate thinking among Māori entrepreneurs, and partly so that key organisations and agencies with a role in tourism better understand the concept of its potential. New Zealand Māori tourism needed to influence the key players in the space, including Air New Zealand and Tourism New Zealand. Could we get a more visible presence for Māori in branding and advertising? And could we ensure this was more authentic, going well beyond the traditional examples of haka, hongi and hangi? Growing markets for Māori tourism experiences means connecting with people who can develop business partnerships and sales channels overseas. Not just to sell existing products and experiences, but to help Māori tourism operators understand what new experiences might appeal to particular markets and how to tailor them for each of those. A survey of Māori tourism operators showed that most concentrated on the English-speaking markets, such as the New Zealand domestic market, Australia, North America, and the UK, plus Germany. The strongest interest was in growing markets in the Asian region, with some also showing an interest in South America. 3 organisations that built the capability of Māori businesses are Te Puni Kōkiri's Māori Business Facilitation Service, Poltama Trust and the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. New Zealand Māori Tourism helped them understand the specific needs of Māori tourism operators and encourage them to tailor their support accordingly. Not just the knowledge and skills to run a successful business, but how to identify the right markets to target, including which customers within those markets, how to understand their needs and expectations, and create tourism products and experiences each group would rave about, and how to forge connections and sales channels to sell into those markets. As well as coaching for business, a Maori Tourism Roadshow was organised with workshops to share tips from successful operators on how to get into various markets. By blending a close understanding of target markets and customers with Maori cultural and traditional knowledge, the final ingredient needed was a richer and more authentic range of Maori tourism offerings. New Zealand Maori Tourism met with iwi and other key players to stimulate thinking and broker useful connections. Part of the vision behind this initiative was for Maori to take back ownership and responsibility for the presence of Maori culture as part of New Zealand tourism experience. Authentic offerings that are fresh and new, going well beyond haka, hongi and hangi, provide a more meaningful and interesting experience for the tourist, one that respects, nurtures and derives economic benefits from Maori cultural capital. It's all part of Maori succeeding as Maori. So when all four of these elements come together, the profile of Maori tourism is raised, both internationally and domestically. We draw in new customers from growing markets. They come and enjoy amazing and authentic Maori tourism experiences tailored just for them, which of course they go home and rave about. All of which puts money in the till for Maori tourism operators, who will be equipped with all the right knowledge and skills to maintain and grow thriving businesses, which will create more jobs for Maori. And all of that contributes to the economy, grows employment opportunities and enhances quality of life among iwi, apu and whānau Māori. New Zealand Maori tourism refers to the intervention logic constantly to keep everyone on the same page about what they're trying to achieve and how it's going to happen. Even better, the four intermediate outcomes help us gauge whether things are on track for success, even while it's still too early to see sector-wide shifts in tourism revenue. How much higher has the profile of Maori tourism been raised so far? Is it high enough yet? Is it on the radars of inbound tour operators or independent travellers, of Maori entrepreneurs? How strong are the business partnerships and sales channels we have into the various markets we want to grow? How Maori tourism operators have been able to lift their capabilities in these areas specific to Maori tourism? Do they have enough knowledge and skills to be able to make the most of the opportunities here? And we are seeing significantly richer pool of fresh, new, authentic Maori cultural experiences in among the various tourism offerings available. Interested in developing a theory of change for your policy, program or initiative? Contact Te Puni Kōkiri's evaluation specialists.